Imagine waking up to discover that your software, the system you built, the system your customers rely on, has accused 700 innocent people of fraud. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? Yet that is exactly what happened in one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in modern UK history, the Post Office Horizon scandal. At the heart of it, it really was just a software bug that became a national crisis, and some would argue a national disgrace. But it became such a thing because the system was not developed securely. It because risk wasn't identified early, because security wasn't embedded in the life cycle, because no one thought about escalation and issues that should have been identified, risks that should have been managed and treated appropriately. Now ask yourself, could this happen in my business? If you don't have a secure development lifecycle, the answer is yes. That's why today we're going to explore an incredibly important control for any organization that develops software or systems. That's Annex A 8.25 Secure Development Lifecycle. Now, this is the first in a series of development related controls. And if you build anything, apps, portals, internal tools, this control matters to you. So what does the standard actually say? Well, it states that rules for the secure development of software and systems shall be established and applied. Now, there's two essential words here: rules, not informal habits, but documented, defined, repeatable processes. And they need to be applied. It's not optional, not when we remember, but consistently implemented. So what do we need to do? Well, as ever with the technical controls, there's quite a lot to unpack. So let's take a look at what ISO 27002, the guidance, asks us to consider. Remember, the guidance is guidance. It's saying what you should look at, not what you absolutely are mandated to do. But 27002 is quite clear. It gives you lots of some really great examples of what you should be looking to implement. You need to define a secure software development lifecycle. That's an SSDLC, a secure software development lifecycle, which basically means you need to integrate security checkpoints at appropriate stages through your development process. You need to apply risk assessments, threat modeling, code reviews, that kind of thing within the whole process. You need to validate security through testing, and that might include penetration testing as well. And again, back to the code reviews. So when you are testing an application, you're not just testing it for user operability, user interface. Does it flow well? Does it look good for your customers? What you're looking to do is validate that the security measures that are there are working. You need to ensure that developers are also trained in secure practices. Do they know what they can and can't do? Do they know how to look for security flaws within the app or the tool that they're creating? Do they understand things such as OWASP, the OWASP top 10? Google it. Go and find out what the latest OWASP top 10 are. If they don't know anything about OWASP, then you need to go and make sure that they are trained in appropriate security protocols so they understand what they need to be looking for, such as cross-site scripting, that type of thing. I'll leave it there. Go and do that piece of work. Now I'm talking about it, I'm thinking there may be another video that we need to do talking about OWASP and the top 10, the current top 10, because it changes from time to time. Anyway, you need to make sure that you maintain version controls, change management, and ultimately what you're looking for is traceability. So if there is an error, if there is a problem, you can roll back to a previously steady state, a a position where you knew everything was working and functioning as it should do. 27002 also very pointedly states that you need to consider legal and regulatory requirements, such as privacy laws, encryption rules. And we talked about encryption and cryptography in a previous control, and it's A8.24, where we talked about the use of cryptography. Ultimately, what 27001 and 27002 is asking you to do is to embed security by design and privacy by design into the process. That's two things: security by design and privacy by design. And dare I say it, that GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, takes that one step further. It talks about security and privacy by design and default. In other words, you need to be thinking about how you make this secure first, and then add on top of that the user interoperability, how they interact with the interface or the tools that you've created. Because the message is clear. Secure development isn't a phase. It's a mindset. It's a life cycle. So why does this control exist? Well, I started out by talking about the Horizon scandal here. But we know that in this modern day and age, we are all too quick to try and design things quickly and as effectively and as efficiently as we can, get that out to the market, test and learn and such. But security has to be at the very heart of what you're putting together. As I said earlier, security by design and default, privacy by design and default. Because let's face it, software today is incredibly complex. Nothing works in isolation. API calls, cloud services, third-party integrations, microservices, and everything in between is interconnected. Without secure development, you risk data breaches, data leaks, unauthorized access, reputational damage, regulatory fines. And remember, the Horizon scandal wasn't malicious, certainly not at its core. It was simply a system that was built without proper security practices. So as ever, let's try and bring this to life without just talking about the Horizon scandal here. We know that a business that created a new feature to personalize training programs that collected names, addresses, and preferences, but the data wasn't encrypted or masked, and a vulnerability exposed personal data to unauthorized staff, which at the heart of it would have been a preventable breach had they just simply at the outset started that software development lifecycle with a good risk assessment. A good risk assessment would have identified flaws in their design principles and scope, and they would have been able to rectify the issues right at the very beginning, instead of having to rectify it at the very end, where when complaints started to come through and issues started to happen, and then they had to retrofit and fix all the issues that they'd had previously. Or how about the developer that adds a new functionality without any security review? A code flaw crashes the authentication service, every user is logged out, business is halted for hours on end. They have to fix things again, retrograde, retrofit the security that needed to be put in place, all because secure testing in the development lifecycle was missing. So what will the auditor be looking for with this control? Well, as I always say it, the auditor is not looking for one simple thing. Yes, they need to see some rules here, but what they're looking for is an amalgamation. They're looking for things that you've done, operational and technical controls. So the auditor is going to want to see evidence of a documented, secure software development lifecycle, that SSDLC that I mentioned earlier, something that demonstrates how you approach security. And the reason that the auditor is looking for this, it isn't just for their sake. And that's probably something I should have said on every video. The whole point of having things written down, policies, procedures, guidelines, is that people in your organization follow the same process every single time. Because over time, memories lapse, memories fade, people leave the organization, and if you don't have these rules documented, if you don't have the guidance in place, then people will start to implement things according to their own experience and their own knowledge. And very soon you'll find that rather than having a set of rules that everyone follows, a set of procedures, people will start to follow their own interpretation of them. So just keep that in mind, that when we're talking about these policies and procedures and such, it's yes, the auditors want to see them, but the reason they want to see them is because they want to know that you are following them. The auditor is also going to want to know that you have some form of version control in place and change management processes and sign off. So again, if there is a change to a piece of software, that you can roll back to version 1.5. If you're now on version 1.7 and a problem occurs, did it occur in 1.7 or 1.6 or 1.5 or 1.4? When are you going to roll back to? You don't know unless you keep previous versions. So you have to have some form of version control in place. And if you are making changes, that again, the changes are documented. So you can say, I can see here that we made this change in version 1.6. So in actual fact, we only have to roll back from 1.7 to 1.6. So you can see when that change was implemented, who made the change, why they made the change, what thought process was gone through, what security reviews were undertaken. The auditor will undoubtedly want to see that you have some form of developer training and awareness, because yes, developers are highly technical people, and good developers understand business needs as well, business analysis. But do they understand OWASP? Do they understand security? If not, why not? What training do they need to go on? How do they do secure coding reviews? Are they just using ChatGPT? Are they taking your intellectual property, your code that you've created or they've created on your behalf, and putting it into open AI for it to test it for any security flaws? How are you testing that? How are you making sure that your developers know that that is not appropriate? So developer training and awareness around secure software development lifecycle is absolutely key. The auditor is also going to want to see evidence of any risks or issues or any problems that you may have identified. So making sure that those are on your risk register, and as ever, that you have a discussion point in your management review meetings to discuss any risks and issues and any incidents, any problems with the software. What is the root cause? Why did that failure happen? And how do we prevent it from happening again? Ultimately, the auditor is going to want to see a documented process for approvals and reviews and implementation. So what does your software development lifecycle look like today? Is it something that you could train someone on? If a new developer came into your organization today, what you want to sit down with them, what you want to do is be able to sit down with them and say, this is how we do it here. Read these rules, read these procedures, and this is how we operate at this organization. Just remember that the auditor doesn't, they want proof that security is not an afterthought. That's what they're ultimately always looking for. Through all these policies and procedures and all these controls that we've already spoken about, they want to know that you've thought this through. And that's why it's a secure software development lifecycle. It's an SSDLC. They want to know that you've thought about security at different steps and different gateways throughout your development process. And please don't come to me and say, but we're an agile organization and we have sprints and we do that. It's like, yeah, I understand that. I know that. You can still have a sprint where you still consider security. It's, whether you're using waterfall or agile or whatever mechanism you're using, please don't try and use that as an excuse to not have security by design and default. It needs to be designed, embedded, and a repeatable part of the development lifecycle. How you do that, totally up to you and your organization. So what do you need to do? How do you go about putting this in place? Well, on this particular control, you're going to go and speak to your development team, not IT. This is a different team. Ask them, how do we develop software today? Map out the process as it is today. That process might be planning, design, build, test, deploy, and then maintain. Then you need to make sure that you implement appropriate steps and ask them, where would be a good place for us to insert security testing here? Just remember that your security software development life cycle, it needs to describe where security is being considered. So ask your development team, where in that process would we put this in place? Can we put it up front before, as we are in that first phase, the planning phase? What sort of risks are we identifying? How are we tracking the risks that are identified in that planning stage? What about how code is being reviewed? What about how changes are being approved? So that testing part, do we do this at the planning parts, the design? It could be code reviews. As we build this and test it, it could be, again, code reviews and looking for any changes that need to be approved. Just understanding how testing is done, you can then find out whether there are any risks and issues, anything that's not being identified appropriately. So maybe another cycle of risk assessments is conducted 2 or 3 times through the process. And ultimately, who signs it off? When you're speaking to your development team, yes, you are going to ask them the question around what methodology they're using, so that your security questions and stages can fit appropriately. If it is agile, then security might be part of each sprint. If it's waterfall, then security must appear, or should appear in multiple stages, just as we spoke about earlier. Just remember that security needs to match your approach to development. We're not talking about slowing you down here. Security should be just part of what you do. You need to embed the security activities. This might include threat modeling, static and dynamic code analysis, secure code training, or secure code reviews, for instance. Pen testing is a great way. Before we make this app or this service available, we conduct a pen test. We conduct code reviews, 3 or 4 stages along the way, whatever it might be. But ultimately, security would sign this off as well to make sure that you're comfortable that all the issues have been identified and adopted. You need to make sure, when you are speaking to your security team, do talk about these terms, security by design and privacy by design. Just talk to them about how they develop at this current stage, and ask them for their opinion about how can we improve security and privacy so that it just becomes an intrinsic part of what you do. Don't bolt security on at the end, build it from the start. Retrofitting always costs more and protects less. And if you haven't got one already, then perhaps you need, for each and every single project that you're putting in place, have a risk register where if your development introduces new risks, you record them, you treat them, you review them, you might take them to the management review meeting, but each project will have those risks and issues. That's the kind of the approach that we've taken with some of our clients. It doesn't have to be a laborious, long list of 50, 60, 100 risks. It would just be a case of sitting everyone down and understanding what are the risks and issues with the development of this particular function or feature or service. So there you go. This is the first one of a number of controls where we're going to talk about software development. Just remember that secure development isn't a checkbox exercise. It's a commitment. It's a responsibility, a promise to your customers, your users, and your future. When you embed security into the development lifecycle, you protect your organization from disaster, from that next big scandal, from the next preventable breach. Just remember this: software built without security will one day fail. Software built with security will empower trust. So build trust, build resilience, and build securely. I hope that's been helpful. As ever, I'm Gary from Consultants Like Us, where we help organizations implement compliance without complexity. Now, of course, software development is a technical control. There's a lot to it, which is why there are several controls all talking about this particular area. And I hope that's been helpful. I look forward to speaking to you on the next video where we talk about the application security requirements. So that's Annex A 8.26, if I get my numbers correct. But I hope that's been helpful. Thank you very much for watching. Do give this a like, give this a share. You never know who you're going to help. You're definitely going to be helping me. So thank you very much in advance. Don't forget to comment and subscribe by hitting that bell so that you can be alerted to new videos that come up in this series and beyond. So thanks once again for watching. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Until then, stay well, stay safe, and stay connected. Bye-bye.